The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet. And by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.
Your reaction to the news that the Cheltenham Festival is going through some major changes. It was long rumoured that the cross-country was going to be reverted back to a handicap. That is now confirmed. And the race introduced in 2011, the Turner's Novice Chase, is losing its Grade 1 status. What is your reaction?
I think if they were going to guarantee changes, I think that was probably high up the list of what a lot of people could have predicted, to be fair. I know it's been said over the years, and when I'm compiling the data for the Cheltenham betting guide, it seems that it's quite apparent that it did have an impact on the Arkle as much as the Broadway Novices Chase. I'd say probably more so the Arkle. We've seen smaller fields in that event in recent years, so hopefully it will help in that regard and in bringing back. But still, you still got to have the horses there who can compete. But by having less options, obviously there's less chance of dilution. In terms of bringing back the Novice Handicap Chase, I thought that was a good race, to be honest. I think it was 2020 when Imperial Order won it. It was the last time it was staged at Cheltenham. It did actually move. I think some people aren't aware that it actually does take place at Sandown, but not Imperial quite in the same guise. So yeah. So hasn't really been as well supported as it was. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, whether there are more changes in the pipeline. Just in regards to that again, I think it could possibly have an effect on the plate. We've seen since that race was removed or switched to Sandown, the old Novice Handicap, or the Centenary Novices Chase as it was known. I assume that will be the name that will come back again with a new sponsor somewhere along the line. But since that did move in 2021 onwards, we have seen probably more novices running in the plate. Whether that will continue, it'll be interesting to see if that trend does. And of course, they did touch upon, as well as, like you say, the cross-country race has gone back. The Glenfarclas Chase has gone back to being a handicap. But as well, in the article yesterday, it was announced that it was hinted that the required runs of novices might be looked at in certain races, whether that's just over hurdles as it was changed a couple of years ago. Remains to be seen. I'd be less warm towards something like that, to be honest. Whether they can bring something in just for festival races and it doesn't affect the rest of the season, because when he changed it last time, it did have a knock-on effect on the whole campaign. And now, obviously, novice hurdlers have to have run 4 times rather than 3 to run in Class 1 or Class 2 handicaps. Is that going to be the case right the way throughout if they have an extra run? If that's the case, yes, it might be better, or some people might see it as being better for the Cheltenham handicaps, but the races like the Betfair Hurdle and things will suffer as a consequence. So it'll be interesting to see if it's purely a Cheltenham change, if that does take place, or whether it's a change that has an impact on the whole season.
I'd love to have been around the Willie Mullins war room when the news came out that Ballyburn and Imperi Pass are going to have to face one another at Cheltenham. Well, neither of those two horses are going to be lining up in a handicap. Like, had they done this last year, I think this is the right thing to do. Yeah. And I applaud them for it. I kind of feel they should be looking at the National on Chase as well, and perhaps reverting back to the original, at least from a few years ago.
A couple of people commented on that when I mentioned something on social media last night, and I don't see that happening now. I think if that was going to happen, it would have happened at that point where they'd have made a bit of a structural change to all the novice chase at the same time. In terms of last year, like you say, Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawn, and probably would have been forced up in trip to take on Factor File, Tal in the Brown Advisory. So yeah, again, it probably would. Last year, I was talking about having more impact on the Arkle. Last year would have been probably the other way and would have had more impact on the 3 mile chase, the 3 mile novice. But either way, it should make either or both of those races more competitive. So in that respect, I think that one is a good move.
Yeah, this decision was not made for the benefit of us as anti-post bettors and racing fans. This decision was made, as much as we might like to think it was, it wasn't. The knock-on effect is that it is going to help us. When Willie Mullins was saying after Factor File won his beginner's chase at the Leopardstown Christmas meeting, well, he's got the pace for the 2.5 miler and we'll look at the 3. He's straight away saying, we're going Brown Advisory. Like, that's it. There's no question there. He would have been very early on saying, yeah, of course we're going for the Arkle with Gaelic Warrior. We're not going to stretch him out to 3 miles just yet.
But whether he's comes out that cleanly after the Dublin Race Festival remains to be seen. But yeah, it should be easy to determine races at this stage. You mentioned Imperial Pass and Ballyburn going. Maybe that will have an impact on the decision whether Ballyburn stays over hurdles or goes chasing. No, I don't know.
That's a good point.
I still think he'll stay hurdling anyway, but that's
I don't.
By the
I
way,
think
but whether it has an impact on it, I don't know. He's obviously, if you think he's quick enough to go and run in the champion hurdle, he should think he's quick enough to go and contest an Arkle if he takes to chasing. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue, really.
No, I don't think it will be an issue for him. And you could be right. Maybe they do decide to stay hurdling with him now this season. But go chasing, Billy. Do it, Willie. Put him over fences. But it's not just Willie. Dan Skelton took advantage of the Turners being there as well. He did what was right in the interests of his racehorse. Ginny's Destiny probably still goes for a Grade 2 handicap, but Grey Dawning would have been in the Brown Advisory and he would have made it a better race. The handicapper hadn't given 145 as a mark to. I know the way you're thinking, that horse doesn't line up in the Kim Muir, almost certainly, and maybe Corbett's Cross could have gone for the Brown Advisory. Like there's so many different facets and different things that you can look at.
We had years, some of the younger listeners / viewers mightn't remember as much, but we had years of only having the options being the Arkle.
Yes.
Or the...
That's how it used to be back in olden times.
As it was for years, the Broadway Novices Chase yet. So that was it. And then in them days, the Grade 1 horses didn't really feature in the National One Chase as well. So, like you say, maybe that could have been something that could have been looked at, or maybe will be in future.
This is a step in the right direction. I applaud them for it, but the truth is they probably need to do more.
Possibly, yeah. And it'll be interesting. It did sound like that there's more to come, so it will be interesting to see. I say that handicap thing is something that I'll be interested to see the approach to the novices and handicaps. It's definitely an angle that I like to follow throughout the season, not just at Cheltenham. So it will be interesting on whether it has an effect on novices in handicap chases as well as, or just handicap hurdles. Last time they made the alteration, it was just to the hurdlers. But like you say, yeah, I know the way you're thinking, winning a Kim Muir last year off 145 and then going to Aintree and winning the Grade 1. So he was obviously
the handicapper, Paul. That's the handicapper begging Gavin Cromwell, Frankie Tightlips and JP to just come and have a go.
It was. Well, he was eligible, wasn't he, just in the 0 to 145 bracket. So yeah, but that'll be interesting as well to see, because I think when it was last run, it had been increased. It was originally a 0 to 140, I think, the novice handicap, then it went 0 to 145. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Whether when they announce it fully and we get the full details of the race conditions, whether maybe reverting back to a 0 to 140 might be something to look at. Then you're looking at that higher rated of those middle distance horses of the novices, then they've got to possibly look elsewhere. Very
briefly, your reaction to the cross country being reverted back to a handicap?
It's probably the least. That's probably the race I'd have least interest in throughout the Cheltenham Festival and the similar races throughout the season. But in terms of competitiveness, it was becoming quite predictable. In that ex-Gold Cup horses running it didn't really seem fair against lesser or horses who were being aimed at that race specifically. So in that regard, probably gives more people a chance of winning it. Whereas Gordon, for example, was happy to run Grade 1 winners in the race the past few years we've seen, and was beginning to dominate it. So again, theoretically it should make the race more competitive once again. Probably wouldn't have too much of an impact on my personal festival.
280,000 people were in attendance at Cheltenham in 2022. 240,000 people in 2023. That's when they were saying, oh, it was the rail strike, it was the teacher strike. How do you explain 229,370 in 2024? You can't. By the way, there's an asterisk on that number pointed out by the Racing Post, because that figure is based on the fact that the Jockey Club say that day 4 was sold out. Was it? They tell us it was. So we have to go with the fact that there were 50,000 people less at Cheltenham in 2024 than 2022. Was it more than that? I don't know. I have no idea. But hopefully these changes are in the positive and right direction, and more changes to come. It doesn't invalidate last week's podcast where we talked about the novice chasers, but it does completely invalidate our conversation about who's going to go for the Turners. So Imperi Pass obviously now headed for the Arkle. Ballyburn as well, if he stays over fences. Maybe, Paul, we'll go into a huge diatribe on this about the Ryanair Chase division, and then Cheltenham will come out later in the week and go, yeah, by the way, the Ryanair's back to a Grade 2 handicap. If they were to do that, would you be in favour of it, or would you be like, no, the Ryanair stays?
Well, no, I wouldn't. I don't think you don't need another handicap. I think there's enough handicaps on the week now, especially with bringing back the novice handicap chase. You still want to see the elite. Whether it needed to be there in the first place would be my thing. Like I was always of growing up that the melon chase at Aintree was where the 2 milers met the 3 milers. Similarly, in the Aintree hurdle, that's where it's the option of coming over an intermediate trip. So I've always been staunchly against the possibility of bringing a 2.5 mile hurdle race to Cheltenham.
Oh,
Certainly
yeah.
something we don't. It's certainly something we don't need nowadays. Maybe
No.
a few years ago there could have been room for it, but certainly not now. I say the Aintree hurdle is there for that reason. The melon chase used to be the race over the intermediate trip of the season. This is here now, and I'd rather see it stay as a graded race personally than bring another. You've got the plate and now a novice handicap over an intermediate trip. I don't think we need to worry about that. Maybe if you were looking to change it, maybe make a grade 2 with grade 1 penalties, or grade 1 winners can't run in or something. If you're trying to bolster the Gold Cup, something along those lines. I don't know, but yeah, I think for now, no, I don't envisage changes to the Ryanair personally.
I'm smiling because Willie Mullins is listening to this going, stop giving them ideas. Stop giving them ideas. That might have to be looked at some point, the Ryanair. But for now, it's there. We can enjoy it, and we will talk about it as part of our preview of the Open Company Chasers. Weatherbys, Paul Ferguson, jumpers to follow. You can get your copy now at weatherbyshop.co.uk and get £3 off with the promo code FFJTF2425. You might want to write that one down. It's all lowercase. FFJTF2425. Use your promo code now. Exclusive Final Furlong Podcast promo code at weatherbyshop.co.uk and get £3 off your copy of the print, the digital, or the print and digital edition. And my edition has arrived. So thank you very much for that, Paul. And thanks, Justin, as well. Much appreciated. What can our Final Furlong Podcast listeners and viewers expect from this year's preview?
Similar to previous years, really. Now we've got kind of set formation with the book, although we've expanded the leading prospects to 50 this year, so it's 30 British trained horses, 20 from Ireland, an Irish extra section.
Shouldn't that be the other way around?
Yeah, maybe so, but then there is the Irish extra section, which covers plenty more. Around the yards is my personal view on, I think it's up to well over 70 yards now this year. We've got 8 contributing jockeys, including Sean Bowe and Harry Cobden. Actually, Harry Cobden and Harry Skelton's sections are particularly in-depth and detailed this year, marking up probably the best part of 30 horses each, respectively from the Skelton and Nichols stables. And it should be said, Sean was actually responsible for the first winner after the book when it was published digitally last Wednesday. And one horse who we give a positive mention to, Rocco Vango, made the winning chase debut at 6-1 at Worcester. So
nice.
Anyone who read it early on Wednesday when it came through would have can thank Sean Bowen for the first winner of the book.
Should be champion jockey, obviously. Harry, we love you. But well done. You can get your copy now at weatherbyshop.co.uk or weatherbyshop.ie. Promo code FFJTF2425. €3 off for Irish viewers and listeners. £3 off, which is more really. That's our thank you to you. £3 off your copy of Paul Ferguson's Jumpers to Follow at weatherbyshop.co.uk. FFJTF2425. Be informed and enjoy.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet. And by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.